welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. Hello and welcome to my channel. So this is going to be the predictions for 2025 series. I know that I should have started a while ago, and for a bit I was kind of hovering back and forth between should I still do this series, should I not do it? Those of you who have been watching my channel for a few years, you probably remember that I have done these predictions for, the year in question, like yearly predictions, a way back. I think I started with 2021 maybe. And I don't remember exactly if I did them until 2023 but I definitely didn't do them for 2024 because I did say at that time also I was running late and I didn't really have the time or energy to focus on them, and they are quite time consuming. But this time I said, you know what, F it. I feel like it's time to do the prediction series, and I did do a poll in my community page some weeks ago. I think it was more than a month ago, to be fair, and I asked how many of you would like to see your predictions for 2025, and pretty much an overwhelming majority said that they would be interested in seeing it. So I figured, hey, I'm not that late because 2025 still has at least another 11 months to go, so I figured better late than never. So here it is. I'm going to start with the predictions. As an introduction, I do want to say, again, mostly for those of you who have watched these prediction videos in previous years, you probably remember that generally I like to divide the year into subsections. This year was really complicated to do, so I'm not going to be able to do a chart for each subsection, because if I had to do that based on the planets that I normally look at for general predictions, which are Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter, I would have had to divide the year into like 5 different charts and, compute 5 different charts and arrange them and all that. So I chose to divide the year in just 3 different charts, and then 2 of those 3 charts have subdivisions. But you're going to see what I'm talking about in a more visual way when I get to each subdivision. You will see a chart with the general transits and more details on them. I do want to start talking about, I want to mention, okay, I'm not going to hold a long speech, but I want to mention again, just as in previous years, I have decided to focus on, like I said, Saturn and Rahu, Ketu, and then Jupiter, because these are the more slow-moving planets, so they spend a longer time in one sign. So obviously, it doesn't mean that these are the only transits you're going to be going through in 2025, because all the planets are transiting, right? As you probably know, the sun is going to be spending about 30 days in one sign. That's why everyone knows that they're born in Aries or Gemini or whatever, or, what all of the people who know their zodiac signs know, which is that the sun changes every month, like every roughly 30 days or so. And in addition to the sun, of course, there's the other planets. So each of them are going to be transiting through a sign. But because these are general readings, and of course it would be impossible to look at everything, because even with these readings, you're going to see, I think they're pretty detailed. I'm going to go pretty much in detail with a lot of things. But it would have been even more impossible to take into account all the transits. And then, of course, speaking of the subject of predictions, you also have to look at the dashas and the mahadashas and the antardashas and all the different types of dashas that you're going through, which are basically periods of your life that are ruled by a particular planet or a point like Rahu Ketu based on your time of birth, right? So every person is going through their independent individual dasha or sub-dashas, right? And like I said, there are also multiple types of dashas, but I'm not going to get into that. Those of you who come from Vedic astrology, and again, those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The rest of you, I do recommend that you also do a little bit of research, and you can also find some videos on my channel where I do briefly mention dashas and antardashas, although I don't think I've ever done a video that where I specifically focused on how to read dashas and antardashas. I don't know, maybe I should look into that. If you're interested, comment in the comment section. But this was the introduction. Another part of the introduction, actually, that I want to mention before I get into it is that you're going to see this on the charts that I have drawn, basically. that I have marked the aspects of the main planets, but I just want to remind you, just in case you have forgotten. Again, those of you who have watched my channel for a long time, you probably know this already, but as a recap, if you're looking at Saturn, according to Vedic astrology, Saturn has so-called special aspects. In fact, multiple planets in Vedic astrology have special aspects or one-sided aspects. So Saturn aspects the 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th houses from where it sits. Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter aspect the 5th, aspect the 7th. Well, the 7th is not relevant because they're always in opposition to one another. So Rahu and Ketu are always opposite. So it's not really relevant to look at the opposition because that's where the other one is placed. But Rahu and Ketu are aspecting the 5th, the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th placements from where they are sitting. Also, of course, I didn't mention this, but of course they're aspecting and they're influencing the houses that they're actually sitting on, not just the aspects. The houses they're sitting on are the most powerfully impacted, but they also cast single-sided aspects. So yes, Rahu and Ketu are always in opposition. So that means if you have Rahu in the 1st house, Ketu will be transiting in the 7th house, right? Because they're always opposite one another. That's why on the charts that you're going to see, I have not even marked Ketu on the horoscope because it's understood that, Ketu is in opposition to Rahu. And I might mention Ketu in the readings a little bit, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on Rahu. Another mention that I think is quite important is the fact that I have written down on the charts that I have drawn, I have written down the time intervals when these transits are going to be active. However, these time intervals, they are general. So bear in mind that the dates of the transits can vary by a few days depending on your location. So in order to know exactly when, let's say, Saturn is going to hit your 11th house, if you have Ascendant in Taurus, you have to actually compute your chart and do a transits calculation based on your actual physical location to know exactly the day and the minute when, it's going to switch from Aquarius to Pisces, just to give you an example. But the dates that I have chosen are, pretty accurate. Give or take, 1 to 3 days, I would say tops, right? This is another mention. So, aside from this, I'm going to get straight into it. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to mention, which is that, again, you may remember this from previous years if you have been watching my channel for a long time, that I like to do my predictions in a random order. So what I do is, right now I actually have Astro Dice. Last time I used to just pick notes from like a little urn that I created myself. I would, basically do like a raffle thing where I would pick each sign that I was going to do next in the series. But now I use Astro Dice, and I like to mix it up a little bit just because, I don't feel like it's fair that Aquarius and Pisces are always last and Aries is always first, So, I don't know. That's one aspect. And another aspect is, it's just more fun this way for me to just do them randomly in a random order. And I pick the next sign, by rolling a dice. So, just wanted to mention that in case maybe some of you are wondering why they're all scrambled. All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to mention, and this is the introductory part. There is going to be the same introduction for each of these videos, so if you listen to it once, you can, you should just listen to it once. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing. There's one more thing that I want to mention, and again, I have mentioned this in previous years. You can apply these readings for your ascendant sign or your moon sign. And I'm talking about the ascendant sign and moon sign of the D1 chart, the D1 natal chart, not any of the divisional charts. Okay, I cannot vouch for divisional charts. You can also try to look for, maybe look into it, tell me if you found some kind of weird coincidences with divisional charts, but I would not look into it because divisional charts are something else. All right, a different type of energy. But with respect to, the moon and the ascendant, you can definitely look at these predictions based on your moon and your ascendant sign, and there will be accuracy connected to it. With the moon sign, it's more to do with your internal landscape and your emotions and what makes you happy on a psychological plane. Let's say, what happens on your inner landscape more, not so much like actual physical things that are happening in your surroundings, right? Whereas the ascendant is a lot more about actual life events. So something to bear in mind. All right, that's pretty much it. And I'm going to get straight into the interpretation right now. All right, so Taurus, you are the lucky winner of predictions. Well, the first one to start the series of predictions for 2025 for all ascendants and or moon signs. So, as a short reminder, again, this can be applied to both people who have ascendant and or also the moon in Taurus. With the mention that the moon ascendant, it's actually called the Chandra Lagna in Vedic astrology, and it literally refers to your natal chart being looked at from the perspective of your moon. So taking the moon as your ascendant, looking at the rest of the houses and where the planets are falling. So for instance, if you have, let's say, moon in Aries and you have ascendant in Virgo, it means that you take your ascendant to be Aries. So any planet that is in Taurus right now is going to fall in the second house as opposed to whatever it fell in when it was in Virgo. I don't really feel like calculating it off the top of my head, but you get the general idea. So basically, you don't change anything else in your horoscope. You just change the fact that you look at the moon sign as your ascendant. That is called the Chandra Lagna, or the chart of the moon. So it's just looking at the natal horoscope from the perspective of the moon. So the Chandra Lagna is more likely to give you insights with respect to your mental and emotional state, your inner landscape, personal development, stuff like that. So it's a little bit more subtle, whereas the ascendant has to deal with actual life events and, very real physical impacts in your life. So just something to bear in mind as you listen to this. If you're listening to it from the moon, for the moon reading as opposed to the ascendant. Okay, so Taurus. I'm going to start with the chart 1 phase, which, as you can see from the video, is from around January 1st, 2025 to March 26th, 2025, when Saturn is still in Aquarius, Rahu is in Pisces, and subsequently Ketu is in Virgo because they're always opposite one another. And Jupiter is going to be in Taurus throughout this entire time, which is just, almost 3 months actually. Almost 4 months, sorry, because it's almost until April. Okay, so first thing that stands out, of course, is the fact that Jupiter is in your ascendant. So normally this is a positive thing. If this is, especially from the moon, the Chandra Lagna energy, this shows that generally you will have a good state of mind. You will tend to be optimistic, you will tend to be joyful, have a strong sense of confidence and faith, maybe more so than in previous periods of time. On the other hand, this could be a potential tendency towards self-indulgence. It could be a potential tendency for you to eat too much. Be careful about that. You might have a tendency to gain weight. This is true for whether it's from the ascendant or the moon sign. It doesn't really matter. Another thing is, especially if this is from the ascendant perspective, it means that people will tend to have a better opinion of you than general, will tend to see you in a positive light. This means that you will be favored in social interactions. You might be particularly favored in situations where you have to deal with Jupiterian activities, which means teaching, traveling, consulting, sharing knowledge of any kind, studying as well, getting involved with an academic environment, even things that have to do with publishing, writing. These are things that are going to be favored during this time. Aside from that, this could also be a time when your health is going to be pretty good, unless there's a lot of other affliction going on in the horoscope. The health could be potentially really good if you have had health issues in the previous periods of time. This could be a great time for healing, for, having increased vitality. But again, there is that mention that you might tend to become more self-indulgent, which means it might be more difficult for you than usual to, let's say, stick to a wellness routine, like a fitness routine, and or to watch your diet. So be careful about that, especially because Taurus tends to have a tendency towards, really enjoying food. Yeah, there might be a tendency towards weight gain. Jupiter is looking at the 5th house, it's looking at the 7th house, it's looking at the 9th house as well. This means that all of these areas which are touched by Jupiter are basically, for lack of a better word, blessed. 5th house shows income through unstable means. So that means like sudden gains. You could be experiencing windfalls. This could also be a good time to look into investments, buying assets, but especially investments, things that have to do with like stock brokerage, insurance, what are they called? Like, stocks and bonds, that kind of thing. So looking into your future and how you can multiply your finances, this could be a good time. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to be reckless or anything because Jupiter doesn't provide like supernatural protection. You still have to be careful about what you're getting into, but this is a more favorable time than usual for you to look into investments of any kind and ways to basically, like I said, multiply your money. This is also a good time for you to do any kind of creative work dealing with children, because the 5th house is children. This is also a good time for you to focus on education of any kind. 5th house is also education, especially up until master's degree. So, great time for you to focus on getting a degree, dealing with exams and all that stuff. And aside from that, 5th house also just generally shows your thought processes. So it could show that you are going to be more optimistic than usual, and then it also shows that you could be getting some really fruitful ideas during this time. Things that are, again, potentially might multiply your income or bring you some kind of recognition. So your intellectual abilities are pretty strong during this time. And the aspect on the 7th house generally will show that, well, as you can notice with the colors that I have painted there, you have also an aspect from Rahu and Saturn on the 7th house, so it's kind of a bittersweet scenario. Either way, with Jupiter casting its energy on the 7th house, it's also softening up the energies of the other 2 planets to some extent. So it does show that you will have generally good partnerships, good relations with the people around you. If you are married, this is a good time, for you as a couple. Good connections, This is also a good time to interact with other people, again, could be about getting recognition in one-to-one situations, maybe even in situations that have to deal with mediation, negotiation as well. And then the Rahu and the Saturn, though, can also bring, some challenges. Saturn is definitely showing that you're going to be scrutinized when it comes to that 7th house energy. And it might potentially affect your career and your social status. Since Saturn is transiting through the 10th house, and it's also aspecting the 7th by 10th aspect. So you need to be really careful during this time about how you deal with, let's say, business partnerships, people at work, authority figures, also figures that represent the ruling powers, government officials, the state, and all that stuff. You don't want to get into unnecessary arguments or conflicts with authority figures during this time. And it might also show some tension there. You might feel more pressure than usual to perform. There could be some authoritarian or authority figure at work especially that is going to be giving you grief. But if you have this ascendant, especially, you probably are aware of this because it's probably been going on for a while. Because, you know, Saturn has been going on and off into Aquarius for, I think, about 3 years now. I have lost track, really. I think it's been even more than 3 years, actually. But, yeah. Either way, this is the prediction for these 3 months, so I'm not going to be thinking too much about what happened in the past. Last but not least, Jupiter is casting an aspect on the 9th house. And again, 5th and 9th houses, both of them are connected to academia. They're connected to universities, higher knowledge, philosophy, education. So every activity connected to these areas is favored for you during this time. You could be really increasing your knowledge. You might feel drawn to study a lot more. And again, since you have both the 9th and the 5th houses activated, this also shows that, you know, you could have a good time, not a good time, an easy time, let's say, or you could find it easier than usual to go for higher education, like master's degree and above. And aside from that, 9th house is also connection to the father. So it could be that, you know, you're going to have a good connection to your father figure during this time. 9th house is also professors, mentors, gurus, religious figures in your life. So these types of individuals are going to have a generally positive influence on your life during this time, and you're going to have generally a good connection with them during this time. Now, Saturn falling into the 10th house, looking at the 12th, looking at the 4th, looking at the 7th houses, right? So, like I said kind of briefly before, it means that, you know, this is a time when you're going to be scrutinized at work. But like I said, this transit has been going on for a while. It's actually heading towards its way out because Saturn will be moving into Pisces at the end of March 2025. But I'm pretty sure for you, Taurus, especially with Ascendant in Taurus, not so much the moon in Taurus, but also with the moon maybe, this has probably been a pretty trying time when it comes to your career. This has been a time, and it still is a time, while Saturn is in Aquarius, where you have to really rethink your career. You have to be, getting rid of anything that you don't need, that is not really authentic to you, that you don't like. At the same time, you are definitely going to be under more scrutiny than usual. So if there were things that you used to be able to get away with up until this transit hits, right now, you're definitely not going to be able to get away. So any kind of mistake, any kind of, how should I put it, like any kind of a shirking of your duties when it comes to your responsibility is going to be potentially catastrophic, right? You're going to be somehow held responsible. So it's not going to be easy to mend mistakes when it comes to work, right? But on the other hand, this could also be a time of, again, challenges when it comes to advancing in your profession. It might be a time when you're feeling that it's pretty hard, like you're working hard, but you're not really seeing the results that you want to see. And this is because Saturn wants you to be thorough, and Saturn really wants you to, Saturn, to be fair, wants you to work hard. So this is not a planet that is going to bring you windfalls or going to make things easy for you. If anything, this planet is going to test your commitment and your determination. So this is why for people who are stuck and have been stuck in careers they have really hated, this has been probably a very trying time where Saturn has constantly, pitted them against the wall and showed them how much they hate their jobs or how much they hate that line of work in order to get them to change, basically. Because Saturn wants you to be thorough, wants you to be on your authentic karmic path. And then you also have the Lord, because Saturn is ruling the 9th house in your case, and it's falling in the 10th house. It's not all bad. This basically means that you might be getting good mentors at work, people who are guiding you with advice, who are maybe even a little bit protective and forgiving towards you. So it's kind of a double-edged, not a double-edged thing. It's kind of like a two-sided thing where on the one hand, yes, you might have more responsibilities. You might even feel like you have to work harder than usual to make your money. You're going to have to pinch every penny during this time because money's not going to come very easily. But at the same time, this is showing that, you might be learning a lot during this time. You might have the fortune to have people at work that are really supporting you. This can also show that because, again, the ninth house is the father figure as well, and it's also potentially travel. This could also show that during this time you might be asked to travel more for your profession. But on the other hand, it could also mean that you might be working for companies that are foreign because of the ninth house influence. And with the father, again, there might be something to do with you are rethinking your father's teachings, or your father's teachings might actually be helping you in your career during this time, But somehow, like you might be comparing yourself, these people who are like, get to a point in their lives where they're thinking, oh, well, my parents worked this kind of a job and they made this much money, and look at how hard they struggled, and I don't want to do the same thing. Like, they have this kind of epiphany where they realize that they want to change careers, especially if maybe they have listened to their parents' advice up until that point. So things like that could be happening. Like, somehow you are rethinking the father's teachings, right? Father or father figures or mentors again. Another thing, though, is that you may have had a job, like I said, where you learned a lot, where you may have been required to actually go through tests and studies because of that ninth house influence. Rahu, so Saturn is aspecting the 12th house. So this shows there's a lot of effort, conscious effort being put towards the 12th house, which means things like isolation. So you might feel more than normally or more than usually a desire to isolate yourself on purpose, maybe to meditate more, to regain your energy, to detach from other people. But then it could also show that you're going to have to put conscious effort into your sleep. This maybe sounds a little bit random, but maybe your sleep has been bothering you more than usual. Maybe the sleep patterns haven't been great. So you're going to have to put more effort and discipline into that area. The 12th house can also show, again, long distance travel. So it could show that, there's some kind of an impediment when it comes to long distance travel during this time. Like, and long distance means like a different continent, usually, far away lands. And there might be frustrations when it comes to long distance travel, either delays or some kind of frustrations once you get there. Don't say that I didn't warn you. And then the aspect on the 4th house, by the same token, can also show that there might be something happening physically in the home that is really vexing. More like, again, with Saturn, generally everything that Saturn touches, unless it was thoroughly done, it's going to crack, right? It's going to create problems. So, for instance, if there's been any kind of issue that you have been postponing when it comes to your physical home, or when it comes to the vehicles that you are using, your car, your bicycle, and so on, you can expect them to break down during this time. Like issues with plumbing, issues with, anything that could go wrong around the house, really. Especially if it has to deal with the fact that you were not careful enough and you haven't checked them in time or stuff like that. Old problems really are going to reach a crux, right? A climax or something. They're going to reach a height where they're going to, it's going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like everything may have been working fine for years, and all of a sudden one day something's going to break down because you have this Saturn energy, and maybe you haven't done your checkups for your car in time or something, and now something's going to happen. I don't want to jinx you, but I'm just telling you based on experience, this is how Saturn transits work. All right. And also because it's aspecting the 7th house, it's also kind of making you rethink the relationship, that if you have a romantic partner, or if you are in any kind of a business partnership, this is going to be a time where Saturn, again, is going to make you rethink these relationships. And anything that was not solid, that was not, thoroughly built based on very authentic approaches, might crumble during this time. So if you've been in a bad relationship, if you've been in a relationship that was not really supporting your growth, or that was based on superficial criteria on either side, it's going to start to crack. Yeah, potentially. But this is, again, because Saturn doesn't like anything superficial. It likes things that stand the test of time and that are solidly built and dependable and very much based in reality. And, Saturn is all about what works, basically. And then we have Rahu in the 11th and Ketu also in the 5th. See, Ketu in the 5th, by the way, I did not think about this when I was looking at the Jupiter aspects, but with Ketu in the 5th, there could be a lack of interest in anything to do with education as well, unless it is very spiritual. So you might be more drawn than usual into things that have to deal with the occult or things that are connected to Ketu, which are small electronics, electricity, cabling, but also anything that is occult, anything that has to do with research as well. So, and also because you have the 5th house energy, it's about pursuing the things that you're very passionate about, that you are naturally interested in. So if you focus on things that you have a natural interest in, you're going to be having a good time, you're going to see progress. If not, it's going to be like, dragging a dead horse around. It's going to feel like a lot of effort for very little results. But yes, Ketu, falling in Virgo, Rahu is in Pisces. So Rahu in Pisces is showing that you might have to deal with superficial people in your entourage. There might be one or two friends that are not that, how should I put it, helpful to you, maybe even potentially fake or narcissistic. You have to be careful. I'm not trying to say that everyone's going to be a backstabber and that something negative is absolutely going to happen during this time, but there are higher risks than usual that, let's say a friend could turn against you or might, even without even realizing it, might create problems for you. Since we have Rahu co-ruling the 10th house, falling into the 11th house, during this time you might actually find that you, let's say, become friendly with people from work, which again makes the plot thicken to some extent because, friendships with people from work are complicated. Again, they're kind of double-sided swords because, you have to be careful. You can be friendly, but at the same time, don't say anything that can be used against you. You know what I mean? But yeah, you might be hanging out with someone from work. Let's say you might be meeting friends from work, or it could be just that your social circle is like limited to the people that you know from your workplace. And the aspect to the 3rd house, this shows that you're going to be more creative than usual, maybe more technically inclined than usual, more logical. This could also show, very weird mention, but this could show that your taste in music is going to veer towards things that are more electronic than usual, more futuristic / electronic, something that is, like techno or something. Aside from that, or wait a minute, there's another interpretation. It could be that you're more interested in music that has to deal with foreign cultures, that is coming from different cultures, inspired by foreign cultures and all that. With Rahu's aspect on the 7th house, again, you just have to be careful. But again, because of the Jupiter aspect, I would not worry too much. However, there is a slight risk always with Rahu that you get bored too easily. And during this time, you might become, let's say, bored if you are in a relationship. And there might be a higher than usual tendency to, flirt with someone outside of the relationship or have an affair. But I'm not going to say that's going to happen. Of course, a lot depends on individual, readings. Bear in mind, of course, that these are still very general predictions. So a lot of stuff could be happening in a personal horoscope that, could very much outweigh these interpretations. But these are still general energies that you are going to feel. Also with Ketu in the 5th house, you might have a lower than usual interest in children. You might also, if you have children, you might feel a detachment from your children. Or maybe they could be detaching from you. You might feel like relations are getting a bit colder for some reason. Or just that you struggle to maintain a good relation with your children. This could also be, again, if you're a teacher, you might lose interest in teaching during this time, unless, again, it's very much focused on something you love talking about, something that is very personal and something you're very passionate about and you really believe in, right? Okay, this is pretty much what I see with the chart number 1 phase. Bear in mind that I'm going to be referencing the chart number 1 phase for the other phases as well, because I'm not going to repeat the same interpretation. So in the second phase, Saturn is moving in Pisces. That is one of the main differences. And Rahu is going to stay in Pisces. Yeah. And Jupiter is going to stay in Taurus until May 13th, but then it will move into Gemini from May 13th until June 8th. So I should have started with this, the second phase of the chart, but you can see it on the screen. This is from March 26th, roughly until June 8th, 2025. So the main difference, like I said, is that Saturn is moving into Pisces. So basically, Saturn and Rahu are going to be conjunct in the 11th house. So this is further emphasizing that 11th house, which is the friendship zone. Now, because the 10th house lord and the 9th house lord are moving into the 11th house, this can show on the one hand that there will be gains from your career. This is a time where you might be seeing the fruits of your labor when it comes to how much work you have put towards your professional life. And this could also be a time when you will see definitely an increase of finances, maybe even in ways that don't have anything to do with your career. This could also be a time when you might be seeing an increase of your social circle, but still in a way that is quite, how should I put it, formal, because we have the Saturn and Rahu energy. You also might have, during this time, you might find that you are connecting with people from different cultures or different ethnic backgrounds than you because of the Rahu energy. And again, there's still that warning of you want to be careful because during this time, you might have, friends that act against you, that are two-faced, because Rahu can show deception, right? So Rahu tends to show potentially even people who are narcissistic, people who are very determined to succeed materially to the point where, they walk over dead bodies. On the other hand, you have to be careful that you don't become that way. So Saturn Rahu in the 11th will definitely make you focus a lot more on making connections, building friendships. You're going to be rethinking, like, do I have the friends that I want to have? Maybe I should work towards building more strategic connections, because both Saturn and Rahu tend to be quite strategic. On the other hand, this also shows that you will be putting a lot of effort into things that have to do with technology, maybe learning new skills connected to technology or anything STEM field related. There might also be an effort focused on travel, especially traveling with people from work or, traveling for work. This could also be a time when you might have an interest in traveling with your friends or with new acquaintances. Aside from that, the conscious effort right now is shifting towards the Ascendant, because Saturn is aspecting the Ascendant by third aspect. So conversely, this is going to be a time when you're going to become more focused on taking care of yourself, taking care of your presentation, your physical body. You might find it easier to become assertive, to take care of your body, as in, stick to a fitness regime. You're going to find it easier, but not super easy, because Jupiter is also there at the same time. I did not draw it on the chart because it's switching signs during this period, but it's in this first phase until May 13th. It's still in Taurus, right? So both Jupiter and Saturn are aspecting the first house. So this is a good time to work on your fitness, though, to change your diet maybe to some extent as well. But overall, people will still maintain a good opinion about you. You're still going to be favored in terms of everything Jupiterian, but also potentially Saturnian this time, which means that you will be favored when you want to work in some kind of corporate ladder. You want to climb the corporate ladder. You're going to be easily accepted in any kind of hierarchical structure, basically. Any kind of work environment where you have to do administrative work, do a lot of repetitive work, and or working night shifts. You're going to be favored for these jobs during this time. Aside from that, Saturn is also aspecting the 5th house, where you also have Ketu in there. So one thing that I have to warn you about clearly is that you don't want to gamble during this time at all. You do not want to gamble during this time. I repeat that because there are high chances of suffering losses during this time, right? And no gambling, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be looking towards investments or maybe learning about investments, but you have to be really careful. You have to be really thorough. You cannot afford to take any chances. So control any risk to the maximum. At the same time, this could be a time when education will start to give you grief. So if up until this time it was quite easy for you to focus on education, during this time you're probably going to have a low interest in it, and or you're going to experience some kind of setbacks when it comes to maybe finishing education, or when it comes to maybe taking exams, tests during this time. So my advice is, if you are in some kind of a position where you can decide when to take a test or an exam, do not postpone it for this time. If you can take it before the 26th of March, that would be best, or for a later period. Because during this time, you're going to see more higher than average challenges. Now, of course, I'm not trying to suggest that you should just quit school if you have this placement, but if you are going through this transit and you have no power to change an exam, you have to take it during this time. You should bear in mind the fact that, again, with Saturn, there has to be a focus on being thorough. Saturn is not going to cut you any slack. So you have to be 100% disciplined, give it all you can, and make sure that nothing is left to chance. You know, don't just think that you can wing it during this time, because you're not going to be able to wing it. You're not going to be able to cram a night before the exam with these placements, all right? So you have to prepare ahead, and you have to give it all you can and be thorough and disciplined, just like Saturn likes it. And then when it comes to teaching, or maybe again dealing with children, you might have some frustrations during this time. Another thing that you might lose interest in is dating and romance, because 5th house is about dating and romance. Now, again, a lot of this will also depend on what is going on in the individual chart, and maybe what planets are also sitting in the 5th house or aspecting the 5th house. But by and large, this transit will just make you less interested in hanky-panky romance, fooling around, and all that stuff, right? So you're not going to be in a particularly romantic mood. You're probably going to be a lot more focused on, well, building connections, maybe making money as well. And now we have an aspect of Rahu fully aspecting the 7th house. Again, unless there are other placements in your natal chart that are overweighing this, that are, outweighing this, this is the most powerful aspect on the 7th house. So Rahu aspecting the 7th house, again, asks you to be careful when it comes to partnerships. You might get into situations where you attract partners that are deceitful during this time. So if you are looking into, let's say, getting in a serious relationship during this time, you have to be really careful, really vet the person that you are going to date, or who knows, maybe do something more serious with, like move into their same place as they are moving into, or even getting married. I don't know, depending on what your situation is. But during this time, because of the Rahu deception energy there on the 7th house, you just have to be a little bit more careful. Also, be careful about any kind of business partnership that is being offered to you. Be careful when you're signing any kind of a contract. Always read the fine print. Don't throw yourself head first, because again, you don't know where there might be hidden deceptions. Rahu tends to like to deceive, all right? So that's why I'm telling you, you need to be careful. Aside from that, you also have Saturn aspecting the 8th house. So if you are married, there might be issues with the in-laws. Like the in-laws might be going through some kind of a trouble. If you are not married, actually irrespective of your marital status, the 8th house being impacted shows that it might be harder for you than usual to get a loan or to find good insurance for whether it's healthcare, any kind of insurance really. 8th house has to deal with any kind of activity that involves relying on other people's money. So that's why it rules banking, insurance, I don't know, pensions as well. So, if you're getting into that, maybe making a pension plan, you have to be thorough. Again, Saturn is just asking you to be thorough. So do your research. Don't leave anything to chance. If you're striking a deal, if you are signing a contract, especially if you're signing a contract with, a bank or something, or any of these institutions that I mentioned that have to deal with managing money that is not their money, you have to be really careful so that you don't get swindled and that you don't lose money out of this. All right. The 8th house also has to deal with psychology to some extent / mental health. So because Saturn is stronger here and strongly, more strongly, let's say, looking towards the ascendant and all that, there might be a bit more of a tendency towards gloomy thoughts, let's say, right? Especially in the first phase from March, especially in the second phase from May 13th to June 8th. I'm going to see what happens after that in the chart 3 phase after June 8th. But from May 13th through June 8th, you might be a little bit, let's say, gloomier. You might have a tendency to be a bit more negative in your point of view. So again, you want to watch that it doesn't fall into depression, because it's just, again, it's just the transits playing tricks on you, basically, like making you focus on things that are depressing when there are always positive things to look at. There is still the Jupiter, so until May 13th, Jupiter is still aspecting the 5th and the 9th houses. So if anything, actually, because Jupiter is still aspecting the 5th, even though you have Ketu and Saturn aspecting the 5th, and I gave you that scare about exams, you actually have a good chance during this time until May 13th. You still have a really good chance, and you are still a little bit favored, at least because you have that Jupiter on your side when it comes to taking exams, studying, and all this stuff. Having fun, having creative thoughts as well. Learning is going to come relatively easily. After June 8th, it might become increasingly more difficult. But again, a lot of this also depends on individual placements. So yeah, this is pretty much what I see with the chart 2 phase. Moving on to the chart 3 phase. Let's see, when Saturn is in Pisces, Rahu this time is going to be moving in Aquarius. Therefore, Ketu is going to be in Leo because they're always opposite one another. And Jupiter will be in Gemini from June 8th until October 13th, and then it will move into Cancer from October 13th until the end of the year 2025. All right, so Rahu's moving in the 10th house. So this is definitely really amping up your desire to shake things up in your career, because Rahu is kind of a disruptive energy, honestly. See, it could be either that you want to shake things up, or it could just be that you're going to be thrust into situations where, you have to change something about your career. I'm not trying to say, job loss or anything, because a lot of that, again, would have to be seen from the individual horoscope. But Rahu can bring ups and downs, especially if you're going through the dasha or antardasha of Rahu. Expect some changes, okay? Since Rahu is co-ruling the 10th house, though, I would mostly see this as a positive thing for you, because you could be seeing an increase of social status, an increase of, your professional growth, maybe even a promotion, because, 10th house going into the 10th is showing some kind of an increase, right? Some kind of a recognition and a stabilizing of your career path. So, yeah, you might be feeling more stable than usual in your job, or getting more attention or something. Rahu in the 10th also can show a higher than normal focus on anything to do with STEM fields, especially technology. So for instance, this could also mean that if you're someone who has always wanted to work from home and you haven't had the chance up until this point, you might have higher than usual chances of getting some kind of a job where you can work from home. Because again, Rahu is technology, right? Or getting a job in something to do with technology, or anything to do with Rahu, which even includes things like the smoke, the drink and tobacco industries, anything that has to do with smoke, actually, like smoking shishas, cigarettes, anything else, you know what I mean? Could even do with illicit substances. Yeah, don't be careful not to get involved in that. But it can also be spirits, you know, anything that has to do with alcohol. And in fact, one of the tricks that I have heard from one astrologer, and I have applied this in my own life, because I'm going through the Rahu Dasha right now, Mahadasha actually, and I also have some Rahu going on natally in my 10th house. So one of the tricks that I have learned from another astrologer is that when you have Rahu influencing the 10th house in any way, it's actually good every now and then to have some alcohol or to smoke, you know. Depending on what your thing is. Of course, I'm not trying to encourage that you pick up bad habits, but Rahu likes these kinds of energies, and basically, in a way, when it touches your 10th house, you are appeasing its energy and making sure that you don't have a lot of troubles when it comes to your workplace. But this might be especially advisable if you also have some 8th house energy involved in this 10th house situation. So like if you have the 8th house lord falling into the 10th house, then I would definitely look towards something like this, or some more malefic influence on the 10th house. Okay, but either way, you know, with Rahu internally, especially if this is coming from the moon, the Chandra Lagna placement, as opposed to the ascendant, you will feel a very strong desire to get recognition, to get social status, to really progress in your career, which can have, you know, pluses and minuses. So you will definitely feel more encouraged, you will feel more ambitious to pursue your interests, and because of this, of course, you might see some progress in your career. And especially, by the way, especially from June 8th until October 13th, because this is also when Jupiter will be aspecting the 10th house as well. So you will have that added, you know, boost of opportunities and luck coming from Jupiter. So yeah, you might be getting more opportunities. Like I said, in any profession that is somehow connected to Rahu, you might really thrive. So technology, things that have to do with substances, you know, smoking, drinking, and all that. Maybe also the pharmaceutical industry, any kind of STEM field. Like I said, anything that has to do with state-of-the-art technology and or the online medium, you know. So yeah, you might see a lot of growth during this time. Rahu aspecting the 2nd house is also showing that you might get a taste for exotic foods. All of a sudden, you might feel drawn to trying foods. Sorry, not fruits. Actually, could even be fruits from different cultures. You know, you might just suddenly develop a taste for things that are exotic in nature when it comes to your diet. Aside from that, again, there might also be a higher than usual tendency to feel drawn to things like alcohol, smoking, and all that stuff. I'm not trying to suggest or encourage that you have to do this, but you might just notice it naturally, right? And aside from that, with the 2nd house, there might be a separating sort of aspect, but actually from June 8th to October 13th, when Jupiter is in Gemini, you would not have to worry about that too much, because Gemini is overpowering the influence of Rahu. And in fact, if anything, because Jupiter is sitting in Gemini, and throughout this whole time, you might again have a tendency to overindulge, though, when it comes to your diet, when it comes to maybe even potential bad habits like smoking and drinking. So you do have to be careful about that. But when it comes to relations to your family of origin, there will generally be good relations. This is also a good time for you to gain assets, to invest in assets, especially since Jupiter is ruling the 8th house. So this could show that you might be easily getting a loan during this time. So this is a time where, I don't know, if you want to get a mortgage, if you want to get a place, if you want to, I don't know, buy a car on a loan, this could be a good time for you to get approval for loans because of that Jupiter influence on the 2nd house. Or just in general, it's a good time for you to increase your savings, even if you are not making huge investments or huge changes, right? Also, the 11th house lord is also falling in the 2nd. So this is definitely going to be a time when you're going to see a significant increase in your finances. And you're going to find it easier to save money as a consequence. With Saturn sitting alone in the 11th house, aspecting the 1st, the 5th, and the 8th houses, I have to say that you might feel a little bit lonelier than before with this placement because Rahu has gone back to its place in the 10th house and Saturn is sitting there on its own. And Saturn can be a pretty cold energy. Sitting in the 11th house, this also shows that you might feel like your connections, your friendships are turning formal, like you mostly only hang out with, let's say, people who you know from work or that you are not very close to. Maybe you might even feel like old friendships are turning cold. But bear in mind that whenever this is happening, it's because Saturn is making you rethink these relationships. So Saturn wants you to be thorough and ultimately wants to stop you from wasting time on things that are not really in your best interest and that are not really supporting your authentic development. The development of your authentic self is what I'm trying to say. On a more down-to-earth level, if you have older siblings, you might feel, again, there might be a harsher connection to the older siblings. Maybe there might be more of a distance to the older siblings. But at the same time, actually, because the 9th house is ruled by Saturn, you might see a reconnection with older siblings, especially if you are living in separate places, let's say in the world. So maybe you're going to travel to meet one another. Overall, though, I'm definitely seeing most of your finances growing because of your efforts, the efforts that you have put towards your career and your profession. So, yeah. You might also feel during this time, actually throughout most of the time when Saturn is going through Pisces, you might be feeling like your duties towards your work, towards your job, are keeping you from, having fun, so to speak. So keeping you from enjoying the hobbies that you used to have, or maybe also spending time, doing romantic stuff with your partner. So yeah, there might be a bit of a bitterness there. And if that is the case, of course, you just have to make a conscious effort to establish boundaries between your work life and, how much personal time you want to have. And also, figure out a way to still focus on having fun for the sake of having fun, basically. And, spend time on your hobbies. And when Jupiter is going to be moving into Cancer on around October 13th, it's going to be falling into the 3rd house, and it's going to be aspecting the 7th and the 11th houses. So this is actually increasing your opportunities for gains, and it's also increasing the friendship situation in your life, your social circle, acquaintances, also the relationship to an elder sibling if you have them. They're going to be improving, and suddenly you might feel like, friendships are starting to warm up, or maybe you might find new people because of the Jupiterian influence. And it's also a good time, again, for financial gain. It's even stronger than before because Jupiter is ruling the 11th house, transiting through the 11th house. By aspect, and it's transiting through the 3rd house. This is also going to be a great time for you to do anything independently, like, start a side hustle, become more independent, maybe become self-employed, as opposed to having a regular full-time job. So yeah, this is a good time for independence to be cultivated, basically, starting with October 13th and until the end of the year. And it will probably continue a little bit after that as well. Haven't actually checked, but I'm going to see that in 2026. So yeah, but Jupiter is going to bring, a lot of optimism, a lot of faith. And also Jupiter falling in your 3rd house is going to increase chances for travel. It's going to increase your desire to study, to learn, your capacity to learn. You might, suddenly feel a reawakening of, old desires to maybe go to get a certain degree. or just reading more than usual, because of that Jupiterian influence on the third house. It's really going to shift your mind towards having like a broad view of things, putting things into perspective, and also at the same time maintaining a generally optimistic worldview, And aside from that, Jupiter is also going to be looking at the 9th house, yeah. So travel is going to be very favored during this time, all right? Even though, well, not even though, I was going to say even though there might be some challenges, but they're going to be very small. Again, of course, there's also the general horoscope to look at. But unless, let's say, you have a lot of malefics in the native chart in the 9th house, I would not worry too much about anything going wrong during traveling. So you're definitely going to be favored in anything that has to do with education. Also, Jupiter aspecting the 7th house. This is showing that, it's going to be a good time for you to meet a long-term potential partner, maybe even actually tie the knot during this time, depending on what your situation is. Like if you're someone who already is in a serious long-term relationship, this could actually be a time where the relationship is going to evolve into something even more serious, like moving in together or, somehow reaching a new milestone, basically. Getting married, something like that. That could be a thing. But aside from that, this is a good time to meet long-term potential partners and even get involved with a partner when it comes to business, potentially. Also, this is going to be a good time to work with people in one-to-one situations, like in any kind of a teaching position, consultants, stuff like that, basically. Also, since Saturn is going to be in the 11th house, and throughout this time when Saturn is actually in Pisces, you might feel a stronger pull towards doing things that are humanitarian, maybe working with underprivileged classes. But since we also have that Pisces energy, of course, depending on where it's sitting in there, you're also going to feel a strong, maybe creative pull. Like you want to try creative activities, but a lot depends on what else is going on in the individual horoscope. So, yeah. Overall, though, your focus during this time is going to be on security when it comes to finances. So building a lot of security, even more so than usual, because I know for Taurus rising or moon, security is always a big thing financially, but even more so than usual, you're going to be focusing on, putting things into perspective, thinking about the long-term investments that you want to make and how to secure your position financially and career-wise. So you might actually, for instance, turn down business opportunities or career opportunities that promise huge gains if you feel like they are not really offering security or stability. So you're going to prioritize security during this time, most likely, unless you are somehow purposefully thrown into a situation where you have to adapt quickly because of that Rahu transiting the 10th house. Yeah. One thing that I also want to mention is Rahu aspecting that 10th, 4th house axis. There might be some kind of colder relations happening with the parents or the parental figures, maybe potential arguments, a rethinking of the relationship with the parents. There might even be some kind of a rebellion happening towards the family during this time. More than usual, I mean. Okay, so this is pretty much what I see for you, Taurus, for 2025. These are the general trends. Of course, I am going to mention again the same disclaimer, which is that take it with a grain of salt. These are general predictions. A lot has to be seen from individual horoscopes, but still, these are the general vibes, general trends that I see. Feel free to come back to this reading throughout 2025 and let me know how it matches, how it resonates with you. I'm very curious to hear about that. And I hope you have enjoyed it and found it useful. And once again, if you have, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Click on the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. If you're interested to find out more about the membership section, you can check out the introductory part of this video where I have given more details. Please comment in the comment section, like I said, with any feedback you would like to give or any questions, anything, as long as you keep it respectful. And aside from that, if you're interested in a private astrology reading, you can check out the video description. I have left my email there as a contact. You can email me for more information about readings, reading options, prices, waiting time, payment details, and everything else you want to hear. And last but not least, I also have a tarot channel. So if you're interested in tarot, I'm going to leave it in the video description. I'm going to leave the link to my tarot channel in the video description as well. So if you're curious about it, go ahead and check it out. Maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great 2025. Bye.